Hello, developers! Welcome to Elixir Pro. In this class, you're going to learn more about the backend. I strongly recommend you to give us your like and give us feedbacks about the material and what do you think about the material as well. I hope you enjoy this material and in this course, learning a lot of Elixir and APIs. So let's keep our class. So the last class, you learned a little bit more about the Ecto, the change sets, and you learn about APIs. And in this class, we are gonna start building our first create, read, update, and delete. And I'm gonna explain to you about the context and how it works, because this is much more important that you start creating like a mix phx dot gen JSON. This is really easy, but it's better you to understand what you have in the background and how all of the things works instead of just start creating your API. So let's go ahead. So I just dropped my database over here. I'm gonna start the application. And there you go. So now, if I go to our Thunder client over here, go to collections, go to Elixir Pro, we have our categories, and then we have our list all categories. But let's make this one easier to understand. One of the things that I like to do is that just rename this API. We can call this like all. And let's start creating our next API. As you remember, the last class, what we learned is how the chain sets and how the act works to start creating categories. And now let's gonna use some resources. Let's create some tests as well. So let's just check if our APIs is working. So to do that, we can check that it's working perfectly, which is really cool. And let's go ahead now to our routers over here. And then you have our category controller. As you remember, we're going to create now our post categories. And this is going to be, or maybe not, let's go ahead and start with our Thunder client over here. Or we can do better. Let's use a little bit more about TDD. So let's create another test. That's going to be a mention to categories. Let me just create a branch. This is going to be important for us because we need to isolate our code. So here, we're going to create the branch class 3. And now let's start our application. And now, because we started our application, let's start creating our first test. So we can go ahead and create our category. And as you can see, and we did in our last class, given a payload, create a category. And now we will have our connection. And inside our connection, as you remember, we can use, we're going to use a post. And in this post, we're going to send our connection over here. Routes, category, underscore path, connection, create. And let's send our category, which is going to be the category that we're going to create. So this will be something like name. Will be, let's use a map, a normal map, sport, and description. I'm gonna send pumpkin, and also let's check. We can use the assert that it's gonna return for us like name, sport, and description array function pumpkin. This is gonna be equals our JSON response. We can send our category, and the code will be 200 for now. So first thing that's gonna happen when our test is running is that it's gonna blow up our code. So let's gonna fix that while. So one of the things that's happening is that it does not exist for us. The category path that already exists is our index. Let's go ahead and create our new API over here using the TDD. So this is going to be category post create. We're going to receive another kind of error message, which is really cool for us. So it's blowing up as well. Now create is undefined or private. Let's create this function. We are going to receive our params. As you can see in our params, you can check that we have a body. Body, we should be able to see some things. No, there you go. We received this params over here, like category, which is really important for us. And let's go ahead and return connection. This one, let me explain to you how it works. So if you go to help backend web, no, plug connection status code. As you can see, we have all of them, but not like a number, but what kind of process it returns. So for this case, we can use the put status, underscore status, created. And after that, we're gonna use the render as well. We're gonna send to our show.json. We're gonna send in singular category. And let's send our category that we are receiving right now, and then we will fix our code and start handling with the database. When we do that, the test dot what is gonna test this one for us. So it's blowing up. What's happened? It's created. So that was my mistake. Sorry. Let's wait for a little while. It's still running. So there you go. It's failing, but it's failing because this pair matching to render does not exist. Let's create this guy. So if you go to our category view, we can create something like render show.json. This is going to receive like category and category as well. And now let's use the render one. I explained to you a couple the last class. You can just send the category over here, module, and category.json. Let's see how it works and if it's gonna work as well, which is really important for us. So everything that we are doing, we are using the TDD, which is really nice. So for now, the idea, unfortunately, it does not exist. Let me just include whatever ID here. We can use map.put category ID, and the ID will be 123, just for a little while. Okay, it's failing, and now it's failing because we don't have in our test the ID. So let me just include the ID over here, like 123. Let's check that if it's worked. It's still failing because key not found. We have the ID. We have description. What's happened here? So let me just using the compare. Check if it's correct or not. It's still failing. What's happened? ID not found. So the problem is that we probably are facing this one is in our category view. Okay, cool. So here, what we can do here, let's go ahead and use the database, and then we can fix this guy. So to start using the database, as you remember, what we can do is just use like Sky. This is gonna return for us like okay and category, which is really cool. Let's use the create, sending the category over here. If I go to this place, category receiving category that we want to insert. As we remember, we can use like category repo dot not repo but category over here the chain set, and then we can use repo dot insert, but this way. Our test probably is gonna fail, but our view is gonna work probably. So what's happened here? We check the main problem now is the category ID. We do have the render one, which is already working. Let's check what's happening with our category. Our category is already working as well. I did not save here, so my mistake. I apologize for that. Category is undefined or private. It's already exists. So this is a problem about my VS Code. It's still failing, saying that the create does not exist, but I created that. Created category, not create. So my bad for that, sorry. So cool, our test is basically working. We just need to refactor that. We can refactor it, creating a better way to handle with that. This is our first happy path. So let's start creating a better API. We're going to prepare this material to make this test much more better. So to do that, we started inserting into our database. But now one of the things that we need to improve is our test. So here we have the connection, but will be great because our first validation is because our status is not going to be 201, but 200, and then I will explain to you why. And now what I'm going to do is just using the assert, which is I want to get the ID. I mentioned to you the last class how it works. You saw that. And now I'm gonna use the JSON underscore response connection. This is gonna be 200. And after that, I'm gonna create another connection, which is gonna be a get connection routes category underscore path connection show ID. I'm gonna create another API. I'm gonna explain to you why. But what we are gonna do is create a way to provide to our application a CRUD. And this is gonna be a way to just return one ID. So let's go ahead and create this API as well. This is gonna be much more simpler because we learned a lot of concepts, how it works. And one of the things that we need to make now is just to validate this ID over here. And let me just create this path over here. This is going to complain because the show does not exist for us. Let's create this API as well. So you can go to the router. I'm going to make this one easier. We will receive our ID over here. This is going to be called our show. And if you go to our category controller, this is gonna be just this function, receiving like a connection. We only need to create a parameter to get the ID as well, like this. We can use the render, saying that show.json category, which is gonna comes from categories.show our ID. We can just save this guy, and to create this function, it's gonna be show ID. Really simple. Repo.get saying that I want to receive the category and I want to pass the ID over here. So another thing that we can make here is include a header inside our application. I'm going to show to you every step that we are doing here. We can just use like put resp header location. The route's gonna be category underscore path, which is really powerful. Show, and then we can send our category. This is more than enough. We're gonna test everything. Well, let's go ahead and see if our test is working. Then we can use our Thunder clients to see every step that we did and if everything is working now. So one of the things that's happening here is because we are not using our connection. That was my bad. Let me just fix this guy now. It's still running. It's still compiling. Let's wait for a little while. And now it's cool. Our test is breaking because this is not a status code 200, but 200. Let's check this right now. So cool, our test is working. Let me just prepare a way to handle with that. So now we have our category. Let's go ahead and using the new request, we're gonna create our request called create. This is gonna be HTTP localhost 4000 API categories, and you know how it works. This is gonna be a post. Our body will be something like category, and name will be ABC123 for sport. And description for now will be pumpkin. Now, if I format this code over here and try to send, and there you go. It is working really well. And now I just need to get this information over here. As you remember, if you go to the headers, you have the location, then the location, we have the information to get this information into our API. So now let's create our show API over here. This is gonna be again HTTP localhost 4000 API categories. Let's send over the ID over an ID over here. And now let's send this guy over here, and everything is working. So I just kept focus in our test, because if our test is working, probably our API, our live view, and everything is gonna work. So this is really a nice way to create your features. And probably if I finish this guy, I'm gonna close everything. We need to test a little bit more. Use the mix format over here. Mix credo strict. Let's fix this guy over here. Just make this one in alphabetically order. There you go, it's working. Let me just create our first commit. This is gonna be create API using TDD. Let me just run the test as well. I hope this is not gonna take a long time. Mix coveralls.html. And everything is 100%, which is really nice. But we did not test our API, our context. We need to create tests, some tests to our context. Let's go ahead, create our backend folder inside our tests here. Then we can create category score test.exs. And this one, to make the test for this guy working, what we are gonna do is just go to this guy over here, copy this piece of code, just using categories test over here. And to use the database to create tests over here, you only need to follow these simple steps. So if you go to your support folder, as you can see, you have the data case over here. You can just copy this guy, use this guy over here, and then you can create tests using our context and database. Now let's go ahead and just create some alias, for example, the categories and categories.category as well. And now let's create our first test, given when call list categories should return all. And now we only need to use like categories. Let me just turn on the tests. Mix test, watch now. Categories.all should be equals an empty list, which is Okay, it's fine for us. And another things that we need to be aware is should create a category with success. Given a payload when call create should create and create a category. Now let's go ahead and create a payload. We can just make this guy here, like sport, description, and then we can use the assert. I want that this assert will have a category. This is gonna be a category struct category. And now we can just using something like categories dot create receiving a payload. It should work. And another thing is gonna be like category dot name equals payload dot name. We can just duplicate this guy and just use for the same way to description. And there you go. Let's see if our test is gonna work. So something is failing. Let's check what is this. And the finite function category. That was the problem. That was a problem. Let me fix that. Now everything is working, which is really cool. But one of the things that I want to do and to show you is about if category already exists, we should throw an error message. And I want to update our change set to name to be upcase. So now if I go to our change set, now I can show everything how it works. I can just use this way. Now I think it's fine. We can use like the update change, given the name. Then I want to use the upcase over here. And another thing that we can do, we can create another migration, mix acto gen migration, category, name, unique. I don't want to have the same category called with the same category with the same name. So let's create a migration. Let's create an update to our database. So you can use like create a unique underscore index. I think I showed a lot of things about this for the last class. Now let's use the echo.migrate. If you go ahead to your tests, our test is gonna start failing because we did not update our payload name. We are sending like sport, but this is gonna be everything's in uppercase. So one of the things that we can do now, let's fix our test first. So this is gonna be so simple. We just need to replace this guy to sport using every camel case. Let's see our next test. This is gonna fail again. And there you go, it's failing. So let's just using something like category case as well. Cool, our test is working, but I want to create another test. This is gonna be one call create, given a payload um, from a category that already exists. One call create should then throw an error message. So this is going to be a little bit similar with this guy. And one of the things that I'm going to do is just make this guy over here. And another thing, let's just duplicate this guy and try that again. And then, as you can see, it's returned for us an error message and recommend us to use the unique constraint. We can go ahead for this place and just using like this. This is more than enough for now. So now this is not okay, but it's an error. And then this is a change set. And if you check our change set, we have a lot of informations. And to test that, I strongly recommend you just to go to your data case. And as you can see, data case provide to us a way to test that. We can just copy this piece of code over here, just put it on this place. We can just change the password over here to name, and let's go ahead and see what's gonna happen. So as you can see, this is the error message. Let's just replace the error message as well over here. So let's check what's happening here. So we're not gonna use the category, so we can just comment this guy. But one of the things that's gonna happen with our APIs is that, let me just finish this test. I'm gonna push this code. Then we're gonna learn some chips over here. So our test is working now. I just need to go to this place and just include our informations. We can say like create category now. Category name is unique. Just push this branch over here. And now, if I just execute our IMS, I'm going to close all of the tabs. So if you go to your Thunder client over here, try to use this guy. It's okay, it's working. But when you try that again, this is going to return an error message and explaining that we don't have a way to handle with the error. So I would recommend you to use one of the features that it's really cool in Elixir, which is you can use like Phoenix think controllers fallback, action fallback. I strongly recommend you to take a look how it works. But basically, if for example, if you check this one, if it's correct, should return okay. But if it is not, you should render to the fallback controller is going to handle with that. Let's go ahead and work with this. So to do that, I'm going to just refactor our create. This is going to be just this simple refactor here. And if it is not correct, we're going to use our fallback. So you can just create of your fallback over here. This is gonna be really simple. Elixir provide us when you use the generator fallback. This is gonna be a backend fallback controller. Let's go ahead and create this file. Fallback controller.ex f module. This one. Now we will keep using the back and web controller. Now let's use the call. Here you will receive this kind of pattern, error pattern, like error. This should be like actor.change set, and this is gonna be our change set as well. Now we can just use status, as I mentioned to you, processable entity. I know that is very common in Elixir. You have all of this way to handle with that. We're going to include a view. This is going to be our back end web change set view. And we're going to hand it to our error.json saying that we are sending our change set. Let's go ahead and create our change set .ex error views, but let's use not the layout view, but your helpers error views. I want one simpler, but if it was not possible, let's use this way. Let's create this module. Use backend web, and now let's create this guy. We're gonna use our view def render, the same pattern matchings that we defined a little bit earlier. JSON receiving like change set, change set. If you go to your actor change set transverse traverse errors, we're gonna prepare a way to handle with the error message. So let's use that. Actor change set traverse errors. We're gonna send our change set. And if you're trying to find for translate error in your code, if you go to your error helper, you already have this function, and you can just use that. So to do that, you can just create this way. And now let's provide a better error message saying that our error is gonna be our errors. And there you go. We finish our way to use the fallback and handling with the error message. Let me just check what's happened here. This is a point. I want a comma. Is this working now or not? Or it should, I think. You create again. So it's still compiling. Cool, it's working. When I click on here, we receive a better error message. Our test, all of them is working, but when we use our cover alls.html, there you go. We have 90% because our categories, our change sets not covered. To make this one covered, we can go ahead to our tests. Let me just use the mixed test block again. So go ahead to this guy. Let me just create another test. This test is gonna be much more faster because we saw a lot of resources. So here you'll have something like should given a payload from given a category payload that already exists when call should throw an error message. So here we'll have our connection. So now we can just use our category, something like name, port, description, pumpkin, and then categories, create category. Let me just use the alias over here, backend categories. We're gonna create one, and then let's call the same API over here. This one. I'm just gonna copy and paste, and now assert the message that I don't know where. JSON response connection 422. This is the way. Now I know, and we know that when we call the Thunder client over here that we tried a couple seconds ago, we have like a list. So we will have like and name. And let's go ahead and see if our test is gonna work normally. And there you go. We have like has already been taken. And we have everything's working. Let's just using the mix overalls HTML, see if everything is okay. And cool, everything's passing. Let me just commit everything, like using callback controller. Let me push this guy. And we finished for now. Just remove my screen. So I hope you enjoyed this class. I hope this video and tutorial will be much useful for you. See you the next week learning more about the backend Elixir, and bye bye.